At my housewarming party, my brother walked in, looked around, and yelled, "Must be nice living off Daddy's money." Everyone went quiet as he shoved a drink into my chest and whispered, "One day, they're going to see you for the fraud you are." I was trying to hold back tears when my dad stood up, cleared his throat, and said something that changed everything. I'll never forget that Saturday. It was the biggest day of my life so far. I had just bought my first house. A one-story, three-bedroom place in Columbus, Ohio, out on the east side. It wasn't flashy, but I was proud of it. The paint was fresh, the backyard was big enough for a grill and a fire pit, and best of all, it was mine. No roommates, no landlord breathing down my neck, no rent hikes. Just me and my keys. I threw a housewarming party. I invited everyone I cared about. My parents, some old friends from the garage, co-workers from the auto shop where I'd worked for years, even a few guys I used to hang out with back in my trade school days. I wanted everyone to see what I'd built for myself. The plan was simple: cold drinks, burgers on the grill, music from my Bluetooth speaker, and a bunch of folding chairs set up out back. Nothing fancy, just real. Everything was going smooth. People were laughing, playing cornhole in the yard, and checking out the house. I even caught a few compliments, stuff like, "You really did this all by yourself?" and "It feels like a home, not just a house." Then Chad showed up. My older brother. His name really is Chad, go figure. He was late, of course. Always had to make an entrance. He pulled up in some leased German car, music blasting, sunglasses on even though the sun was starting to go down. He walked up the front steps like he owned the place, didn't even knock. He came in, looked around once, smirked, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Must be nice living off Daddy's money." Everything stopped. Conversations died. Someone actually paused the music. All eyes were on me. I stood there in the kitchen, holding a plate of chips, frozen like a deer in headlights. I didn't know what to say. My stomach dropped. Then Chad walked over, shoved a drink into my chest, hard, and leaned in close. He smelled like cologne and bourbon. He whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "One day, they're going to see you for the fraud you are." I didn't say a word. Couldn't. I was shaking. Not out of fear, out of pure rage and shame. But I still didn't want to cause a scene. I just stared at him. My fingers gripped the bottle so tight I thought it might shatter. That's when I heard the sound of a chair scraping the tile. I turned my head. It was my dad. He stood up slowly from the dining room table, napkin still in his lap. His hands were shaking a little, whether from age or anger I didn't know. He looked around the room, then cleared his throat. "I think it's time the truth comes out," he said. Chad raised an eyebrow. "What truth?" Dad looked right at him. "About whose money it really is." The room went silent again, even heavier this time. I stared at my dad. I didn't know what he meant. I hadn't taken a cent from him. I made that clear from the beginning. I even paid for the inspection and closing costs out of pocket. No loans. No gifts. Chad scoffed. "Oh, here we go." But Dad wasn't smiling. "I tried to keep this between us," Dad said, voice firm now. "But you just crossed a line. You've always made a mess and expected someone else to clean it up. But this? Trying to tear your brother down in front of everyone on the best day of his life? I'm done keeping quiet." Chad's face changed. He looked nervous for the first time. "You want to talk about money?" Dad said, taking a few steps forward. "Fine. Let's talk about the 50 grand I gave you 2 years ago to keep your ass out of jail. How about that?" Gasps. Real ones. People looked at each other like they weren't sure they heard him right. Chad's face went pale. Dad cut him off. "No, you don't get to talk now. I paid your lawyer, paid off your credit cards, even helped you cover that mess with the dealership in Dayton. You told me it would be a one-time thing. Then you came back. Again. And again. And I kept quiet because I didn't want to ruin your reputation. But you come in here and act like your brother's the leech? Hell no." I was speechless. I had no idea. I knew Chad had money issues, but I didn't know it went that deep. Dad turned to the rest of the room. "This house. He bought it with his own damn money. Not a dime from me. Every paycheck, every overtime shift, every missed birthday and date and night out. He earned this." Nobody said a word. Then Dad looked at me. "You should be proud." "I know I am." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. I was shaking in a whole new way now. Chad stood frozen. You could see the storm brewing behind his eyes, but he didn't say anything. He turned and walked out the front door without another word. But I wasn't done with him. Not even close. After that night, things changed. For a while, I thought maybe that moment, my dad finally calling Chad out, would be enough. I thought maybe Chad would back off, take the L, and move on with his life. I was wrong. 2 weeks after the party, I got a letter in the mail. It was from the county clerk's office. A zoning violation notice. Said I had an unregistered home business running out of my garage. I stared at it for a full minute before laughing. I didn't run a business out of my garage. Hell, I barely had time to fix my own brakes. But someone had reported me. I knew exactly who it was. I called the number on the form, and the woman on the phone confirmed it. An anonymous tip. Said they got photos too. Claimed I was charging people for repairs, doing it under the table. It was all bullshit, but still, it messed with me. I had to take off work, meet with a zoning officer, show them receipts, and get my shop manager to write a letter saying I didn't do side work out of my house. It didn't end there. Next, someone slashed 2 of my tires. No robbery, no broken windows. Just the tires. I couldn't prove it was him, but I knew. Then I started getting prank calls. Dumb stuff at first, hang-ups, someone playing sirens in the background. Then one night I got a voicemail that just said, fraud. 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 Over and over. That's when I knew he wasn't going to let this go. I confronted my dad. Do you know what Chad's doing? I asked. He's trying to ruin me. Dad looked tired. He rubbed his temples like he had a headache that wouldn't go away. He's been like this since he lost the dealership job. You know that. He blames the world. He's targeting me. I'll talk to him. Don't. I've got it. Something in me snapped. I was done playing the quiet one. I'd let him walk all over me my whole life. When we were kids, he used to take my things and dare me to tell Mom. In high school, he told people I copied his homework just so I'd get detention. As adults, it was supposed to be different. But he hadn't changed. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went digging. I called an old friend from high school, Tommy. He worked in collections now. The kind of guy who knew how to look things up. I asked him if he could find anything on Chad. Legally? Let's just say, semi-legally. He laughed. You got it. A few days later, Tommy called me back. Bro, you're gonna want to sit down. Chad had a court date coming up. He was being sued. Apparently, he'd taken out a business loan 2 years ago and never paid it back. Worse, he'd used Dad's name as a cosigner without permission. That's identity fraud, I said. Yup. You sure it was my dad's name? Positive. It's right there in the documents. I hung up and just sat there, staring at the wall. This wasn't just about me anymore. Chad had dragged my father into this. My dad, the same man who bailed him out over and over, was now on the hook for a loan he didn't even know about. That's when I knew what I had to do. I could have gone to the police. I could have told Dad right away. But part of me wanted Chad to feel it first, the fear, the walls closing in. I wasn't out for a quick fix. I wanted him to learn what it felt like to have everything fall apart around him, just like he tried to do to me. So I made a plan. First, I printed the loan documents Tommy gave me. I studied them line by line. Chad had forged Dad's signature. Sloppy work too. The notary info didn't even match up. He must have thought no one would ever look that close. Or maybe he figured Dad would cover for him again. Second, I reached out to the bank listed on the loan, posing as Dad. I knew his birthday, social, and address. I didn't ask for anything illegal. Just said I wanted to verify details on a loan I might have co-signed. The woman on the phone hesitated, then started reading off info. She thought I was my father. When I asked about Chad's contact info, she gave me his listed address. It wasn't where he was living. It was my address. That's when it all clicked. He'd listed my house, the new one, as his residence on the loan documents. I don't know if he did it to look more stable or to keep things off his actual records, but either way, that crossed another line. Now, if anything went wrong with that loan, or if someone came looking for him, they'd show up at my door. It wasn't just fraud. It was a setup. I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. I called my dad and asked him to come over. We sat at my kitchen table. I laid out the papers. He read them without saying a word for a long time. Just stared, shaking his head. This is my name, he finally said. Yeah, I said. And that's my address. His face went red. He used both of us. I think he's in deeper than we thought. Dad sat back in the chair, breathing heavy. I've protected him too long. You still can, I said. But not the way you used to. We talked for hours. I showed him everything, calls, the zoning complaint, the tire slashing, all of it. Dad didn't argue. He knew. He just hadn't wanted to face it. I want to confront him, I said. But on my terms. Dad looked at me for a long time. Then he nodded. I'll be there. So we set it up. We told Chad we wanted to meet for dinner. Neutral ground. Somewhere public. We picked a casual steakhouse near Easton. A place we'd gone as kids. Chad showed up like he always did, 10 minutes late, dressed like he was headed to a modeling shoot. He smiled wide like nothing had happened. Family dinner, huh? He said, sliding into the booth across from us. What's the occasion? Dad didn't say a word. I slid the folder across the table. What's this? Chad said, flipping it open. He paused, then laughed. Are you serious right now? Dad spoke up. You used my name. You used his address. Chad's face changed. You don't understand. No, I cut in. You don't. You dragged us both into your mess. You're about to be sued, Chad. And if you don't fix it, the fallout lands on us. He leaned back, arms crossed. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone. Pressed play. The recording started. His voicemail. Fraud. 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 Then, the zoning call transcript I recorded when I called to confirm the report. He went quiet. Dad leaned forward. You've got one chance. Fix this. Pay what you owe. Clear our names. Or we go to the cops. I'm done protecting you. Chad looked at both of us. For the first time in my life, he looked small. I don't have it, he muttered. Dad shook his head. Then you better figure it out. We stood up and left him there. But I knew that wasn't the end. Because Chad? He didn't go down easy. And what he did next made everything worse. I thought that dinner would scare him straight. I thought maybe finally, with everything out in the open, he'd get it. Maybe he'd sell the BMW, get a job that paid less than 6 figures, and start making things right. But Chad doesn't work like that. 3 weeks went by. I didn't hear a word. Dad didn't either. Then I came home one night and found my mailbox torn open. My front door had been egged. Nothing stolen, but everything defiled. A few hours later, I got a text from an unknown number. You think you can play God and walk away? You're nothing without Dad's pity. Keep pushing, and you'll find out just how fast it all falls apart. I showed the police. They couldn't prove it was him. No fingerprints. No cameras. Just a gut feeling backed by a pile of history. Then, something worse happened. Dad called me one morning, voice shaking. I just got a lien notice on my house. What? For the loan. He stopped paying completely. Now the bank is coming after me. It took everything in me not to punch a hole in the drywall. Dad was screwed. And by extension, so was I. Chad hadn't just dragged us into his mess, he was sinking the whole ship. That night, I made a decision I don't regret, but it sure as hell changed me. I went back to Tommy. I want to bury him, I said. Legally. Financially. I don't care. I want him ruined. Tommy leaned back in his chair. You sure? Yeah. I'm done. Tommy made some calls. Pulled more records. Turns out Chad had applied for 2 more loans under different business names. Both defaulted. One of them used a fake EIN number, federal fraud. I took everything we had and walked it down to the police. I gave them everything. Bank documents, addresses, forged signatures, text threats, audio recordings, and even screenshots from a dummy Facebook page where he was advertising a fake startup. They took it seriously this time. 2 months later, Chad was arrested for wire fraud, identity theft, and forgery. The media picked it up, a small article in the local paper. It was enough. His name was out there. His job? Gone. His car? Repossessed. His fake business? Shut down. I went to the hearing. He didn't look at me once. He looked thin, worn down, eyes sunken. I should have felt bad, but I didn't. Dad spoke at the hearing too. Said he loved his son, but he couldn't protect someone who destroyed everything around him. I saw a tear roll down his cheek when he stepped away from the stand. Chad got 18 months. Not much, but enough. While he was locked up, I fixed Dad's lien. I took out a personal loan under my own name to help him. He tried to say no, but I didn't care. You looked out for me, I said. Now it's my turn. He smiled. You turned out better than I ever hoped. I paid it off in full in 15 months. Didn't take a vacation. Didn't buy new clothes. Just worked. And for once, it felt right. Chad got out last year. Moved to a town 2 hours south. I heard he's working at a call center. We haven't spoken since. Sometimes I see him in my dreams. Still smirking. Still trying to tear me down. But then I wake up. and I walked through the house I paid for, with my own money, with my own name. And I remember that sometimes the best revenge is just surviving. But ruining him? That was a close second.